Systems work, people fail. Welcome to InsureMark's Advisor Mentorship Podcast with Vice President Jeremy Hauser, where we share proven systems and processes for the 21st century advisor. Today, it's essential that advisors find a way to differentiate themselves from the competition. Learn how to elevate your game and accomplish incredible feats as Jeremy teaches you how to build a more successful and sustainable business while realizing a better work-life balance is not only possible, but achievable.
Can you believe we're halfway through this year? As we record this, the month of June is coming to a close. I'm Patrice Sikora, and I don't know about you, Jeremy Hauser, but when I was a kid, the 4th of July always seemed to be the turning point to the downward spiral that meant the start of school wasn't far behind, and we're getting pretty close to that. So 6 months gone. Jeremy, how has the year been so far for your team?
I couldn't agree more. Growing up, actually, I played baseball throughout my youth. So 4th of July just reminds me of baseball and traveling and all the necessities of that. So interesting enough, going into work, summer months are usually a little slower for advisors. So I definitely can see the slowdown, but also start to build up here in the near future. The first 6 months, wrapping up so far, the first half of 2022 have been great. I mean, the advisors, the people that are listening to this podcast, a lot of them to attribute that success to were up substantially from last year's record-breaking year. So in the first 6 months, year over year, from last year's year-breaking, how do I even say that? Year-breaking year. Record-breaking year.
Yes.
Let's get through that. Yeah, so they're up a little over 60% year to date through same numbers of last year. So a lot of that success goes back to the theme here: systems, processes, and advisors not being afraid to evolve and intersect some technology. So the year's been going well. Looking forward to the second half.
And with the tumultuous market we've had, what are some of these systems and processes, and where can listeners go to learn about them, the resources your team is using?
Mm-hmm. So some of the resources the advisors are using, those that work with us, they're very intuitive to our advisormentorship.com website. So we're going into those resources. They're diving in. They're hearing the monthly calls from other successful advisors. We find that the advisors looking for a blueprint to what other successful individuals are doing that are similar to them. They always enjoy hearing what those individuals are doing in their business. So they'll listen to some of the recordings we're doing. They'll pick up some articles, different things at point of sale, pick up some ideas, some different marketing. So they're really diving and integrating that advisormentorship.com, the resource library for those advisors. Or I've actually had a couple people here in the last month, new advisors that just wanted to get to know us. They're, I guess you could say, shopping around, looking for maybe some other organizations to work with. And thankfully, we're getting our name and brand out there. And so they'll have conversations with me. And to y'all's credit, so the podcasting, these advisors are, when they talk to me for maybe 15 to 20 minutes, they get to know me a little bit, but get to know our resources, our team. They just go back to the podcast episodes and they listen, because even if they're not members or working with us, they can hear from other successful advisors that work with us. So I heavily urge anybody who's listening to this, possibly check out some of the previous podcast episodes, because those have been pretty great. Had some been really honored really to have a lot of those guests on to speak. So the podcast has been a good one to check out too.
Yeah, you've had some pretty impressive guests over the past 6 months. The advisors currently on your team, how do they feel about these?
So far, it's been good. Our last episode, so that would be episode 20. In our space, our industry, a lot in the annuity space, it's always great to have one of the sought out leaders in it, innovators. So Ron Schertz, who is a co-founder of Annexus. Annexus has won awards, being one of the top product development companies in the country that creates the fixed index annuity products that are distributed on different carriers. So episode 20, my advisors loved hearing behind the scenes of some of the products they distribute. But going back all the way to January, from product design to advisors that have already Chad's north of 25 million of personal production year to date. He's only halfway through the year. He's one advisor, does all his follow-up, all his paperwork. He does all his appointments. He's a one-man wrecking crew, and he's off to a phenomenal year for 2022, only halfway through, and had him on earlier this year. So everybody in between, to industry, to people who are advisors themselves. And then really where I think the focus has become, I've seen an uptick recently for people like Austin Hatch, episode 16, and Ricky Cowman, which was episode 14. So being creative, leveraging your mindset, grit. So yeah, I've gotten some really good reviews, and the great thing about podcasts is it just sits there. So all of a sudden it's interesting to watch previous episodes uptick of viewers, even though that might have aired 3 months ago.
Absolutely. They don't just sit there. They are there for your use. They're always alive, always developing.
Always developing. Yep.
Now, you mentioned some things that people are doing and are being very successful with this, especially the follow through. What are some other things that advisors are doing that makes them stand out?
I'd say for the gentlemen and the women that are doing well this year so far is they're just being creative. I think there's a huge market out there for the consumer where everything seems to be just going by the wayside. People want to work with individuals that are bold, not afraid to go out and go against the grain. They don't just want a yes man or a yes woman to just tell them everything's fine. So the advisors that are having a lot of success, I'd say, are the ones that are being creative, doing things a little untraditional than a lot of other big box offices out there. So they might be using video marketing. So they're leveraging technology. They'll send out a video of themselves as opposed to maybe putting together a 6 to 7 paragraph email to their customers. An advisor might shoot a 2-minute video, send that out to their client base, and they find that the engagement from the video, people are actually looking at the email for one. That's the first job. And number two, actually getting a conversation started through it. So video emails seem to be doing really well for my advisors. And like I said, just communication. People want to know what's going on out there, what's happening with gas prices, inflation. What does that really mean to me as a consumer? And my advisors seem to have a good knack of seeing where the puck's going, of opportunity for them to not lose as much money in the downfall of the market, but also being able to communicate with them of what exactly to their financial situation, what does all this chaos mean to them?
Chaos, that is the perfect word. Does this make it more challenging to deal with customers?
Yeah, and it does. And that's also something too that some of the advisors are doing really well with. They're challenging the not just customers, but they're challenging new people. So because with all the chaos that's going on out there, individuals are, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, some advisors are looking for new firms to join with and have conversations to see, you know, what am I missing? Is there a better way for me to grow? And customers are the same way. So customers nowadays, they're not just wanting to work with a financial advisor. They want to work with the financial advisor. They want to work with the expert. So what they're sorting out is basically maybe a relationship they've had with somebody for the last couple of years, 10, 15 years, and they just feel like their assets that they've accumulated are just stagnant and there might be a better way. So they're looking for the best person out there in the field that can maybe get them something extra that they're currently not receiving from their existing advisor. And so for those people that are the expert, they're not afraid to challenge them. So they're not afraid to say, hey, you know, based on from 2008 to now, the current advisor you're with, how many performance reviews have you done here over the last, do y'all do an annual performance review? Do y'all do anything to where if back in March of 2020, the S&P 500 dropped 20%, 30%, did he have a conversation with you about, you know, why did this happen? What does that mean to you? And when they don't have an answer to that, that's something to think about because our advisors do happen to have these type of conversations. So just putting little seeds in there and not being afraid to say, you know, hey, the market's just going to come back because that's what it does. You got to challenge them a little bit to see what does that actually mean to them.
Talk to me some more about some challenges you see in the industry and among your advisors.
So the industry itself, I think for the most part, a lot of advisors follow similar traditional models. And the ones that we've adapted or we've actually attracted here over the last couple of years, especially the last 5 years, some of those advisors like to do things outside of the box. They don't want to be part of this, the same type of model, the mode of doing maybe just one marketing program, living and dying by getting in front of somebody, doing just one thing. They like to do multiple things to attract different people. So always having different marketing programs going on. That's what the advisors are doing to get in front of good qualified prospects. Going back to the challenging people. So it's a big decision. The customer themselves, they really, at the end of the day, Patrice, do you want to know how that watch was created on your wrist, or do you just want to know the time?
I want to know the time.
So if you just want to know the time, you want to keep it simple. Like I said, the TV, there's news outlets. What is high gas prices? What does that mean? What does that mean to the groceries going up, inflation, housing market, everything? What does that mean to Patrice? So that's where our advisors have conversations with them about, performance reviews. So even if they're currently not doing business with that advisor, go back and do a performance review with your existing advisor. So let's say, Patrice, do you remember what performance reviews do you do at work?
Yeah. No, they're supposed to be a great opportunity for discussion, but in the work environment, it's difficult. I like the idea of doing it with your advisor, though.
Mm-hmm.
I do like sitting down and just ticking off the boxes.
And so going through that, so checking off the boxes, and I think not political or anything, but I think our country, we don't have standards anymore. So it's almost to where not just corporations, but individuals, you got to hold somebody to a standard. So if Patrice is out there and she wants a financial advisor, she has somebody, and let's say all of a sudden the market's doing what it's done over the last 6 months, and that portfolio has gone from 7 figures to 6 figures. So whoever this person may be, you got to start to scratch your head a little bit. I mean, you got to have a standard to yourself. So what does that look like? So for Patrice, for like an actual performance review, like what would be a standard to where, as a consumer, you have to be, not specifically Patrice, but what would be the standard to where, if your portfolio shifted about 20% in the last 6 months, is that something that might be raising a red flag a little bit of a performance review?
I would think so. And I would hope that I would not have to be the one necessarily to make the call for a performance review.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see my advisor give me a ring.
Well, that's actually very good and just think of it yourself. So whenever you're currently doing your performance reviews, so let's say Patrice went out there, you're working for your organization, and all of a sudden you do something to where you lose, let's say maybe your top 2, top 3 individuals who brought in probably the most net worth, or the most revenue to the company. What would probably be the standard for the company, and what would happen to Patrice in that situation?
Well, Patrice might be looking for a new job.
And you would think that, right? And that's the thing of where it's just having a standard and bringing that mentality to, as a consumer, you're out there as well. You're investing, you're putting all these years into your retirement. You're building up this huge nest egg to make sure that you can live on for the rest of your life. But it's okay to where, if corporations have standards, you yourself, you're your own CFO. You're your own personal person who has standards to where, what, if that's just not cutting it, maybe there's a better way. I need to go and look somewhere else. So our advisors are not afraid to challenge those individuals who don't like change, but they might be chatting with a new person, and just bring into light maybe some blind spots they currently have in their portfolios where, it doesn't have to be this way. It's okay to maybe start to think outside the box, and there might be a better way.
That is a great way to put it. Having standards for yourself and your expectations.
Yep. And we'll see. So far, so good. Like I said, the numbers have been amazing. The industry is doing well. A lot of customers are looking for safety. They're looking for certainties in uncertain times. And not just our team doing well, but the industry is doing really well too, because of the products, the solutions, the vehicles that our advisors are recommending to some of these individuals. It's just resonating in certain times today, which is a great thing, but there could be some challenges because of that, the influx of business too, though.
All right, with all the chaos, the uncertainty, the turmoil right now, is
Mhm.
it safe to take a vacation?
Safe to take a vacation. Who are we talking about?
The
As the
advisors,
as
those
the
advisors.
advisors?
Yeah.
As the advisor, it is safe to take some obviously, yeah, it's all about work-life balance. And it's fascinating because I actually, if you look, if I were to go in and have conversations with some of the different advisors that I work with, they may have taken more time off this year than they've had in the last 3 to 4 years. And the fact that their numbers are still up and they're doing so well, it really attributes to the processes they have, the systems they have in play, where even when they're not there in the office physically, they have different channels that are working for them to bring in new prospects. So their calendar's full. So when they return, they're coming back to a very busy calendar, or they're making sure that even when they're away on vacation, their business is not completely done for and stopped for the next week. So it's still, there's things in motion behind the scenes, leveraging technology. It's almost as if you can remove the advisor, they can enjoy their life, but the consumer would have no idea that the advisor is not sitting there every single day working as hard as they can. So absolutely, you can take vacations and have some good one-on-one time with family and recharge the battery. But that doesn't mean you have to have your systems and processes take a break as well. Those don't go on vacation.
All right. Great mid-year wrap up. But before we go, is there anything we've missed? Anything else you want to mention?
I would say just keeping, don't be afraid to challenge prospects. Don't be afraid to challenge customers. The market, as we record this right now, is down approximately 20%. Obviously, back in 2020, it was a different picture with everything that was going on with the pandemic. And then the markets bounced back really quickly. Not saying that it can't happen this time, but based on where a lot of things are nowadays in our country, it seems like it's going to be a little tougher, a little more challenging, especially with money not being printed every single day. At least it felt like back then.
Yeah, yeah.
So just, it's okay as an advisor to challenge your customers, let them know that there might be an alternative out there to help them out with protecting their assets. Never stop marketing. Constantly stay in front of people, even when you take those vacations. And one thing with the business being an uptick here recently, carriers know that, with the insurance carriers that we utilize, their offices are probably taking on a lot of business right now. And just like advisors, people with kids out of school, they might be taking vacation too. So in this virtual world that a lot of individuals work in nowadays, timetables might be shifted a little bit. So processing business, that may be going a little slower. So just be mindful of that, set expectations to customers, because a lot of companies are taking vacations, and also with carriers processing business, especially if business is coming in more than it has in the last couple of years. I could definitely see here the next couple of months, that's going to be a conversation. You have to set the right expectations with customers, let them know their business might not be issued within the normal business hours of typical time.
Well, Jeremy Hauser, how can advisors reach you?
Find us on LinkedIn. So just Jeremy Hauser on LinkedIn. Go to advisormentorship.com. Those are two ways. And don't hesitate to reach out to us. Check out some of the videos and podcasts. And hopefully some of our resources could help out the listener here today get better with their business and their practice.
And of course, follow this podcast. Yes, yes. But don't be greedy. Share the insights and information with colleagues and with friends. Thanks, Jeremy. I'm Patrice Sikora.
Thank you for listening to the InsureMark Advisor Mentorship Podcast with Vice President Jeremy Hauser. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available, and connect with Jeremy on LinkedIn to stay up to date. If you would like to request our introduction kit, feel free to check out www.advisormentorship.com and click on Learn More. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of InsureMark. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. Thank you for listening to the InsureMark, the Advisor Mentorship Podcast with InsureMark Vice President Jeremy Hauser.